G'day and welcome back to Stippy's workshop. Today I'm going to be replacing my rear fan in my editing rig. To replace the fan you're going to need a few things. A measuring device so you can work out what size fan you need. Some screwdrivers so you can remove panels on the case and remove the fan itself. And maybe some pliers to disconnect the wire. For starters, to work out what size fan I need, what I'm going to do is get my measuring device. In this case, a pair of vernier calipers with a digital display. I'm just going to measure the diameter of the holes. So we're all zeroed out, fantastic. And let's measure it out. Cool, and that looks like a 120mm fan to me. So I'll get a 120mm fan and install that. So I've already been to my local parts store, gone and bought myself a nice 120mm fan, just a basic one. Don't need any cool RGB or anything like that for my editing rig. All I need is something that's going to move the air around and keep my GPU nice and cool. So I'll get the panel off and install this. Now before I go too far with the install, you can see I've disconnected the computer from the wall. I've held down the power button for about 5 seconds, pressed all the other buttons, so I've discharged the system so it makes it safer to work on. Also wearing things that aren't heavy and woolen, so I minimise the static charge that I have that could potentially damage the device. From there, what I'm going to do is remove the screw up here and the screw down there and get access to the case. And in my case, it's just uses Phillips head screws. Gently move the panel back. Now I've got access. Now coming over to the case, you can see we've got the fan in here, and then there's this ribbon cable just here, and that goes up, and I don't know if you can see that. So that 3 connector there connects into the motherboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect that, so the fan is disconnected from the motherboard. And I'm going to use my electrician's pliers to do that. Alright, just going to come up, just gently tug on these wires. Now it's removed from the chassis. Now I have to do is remove the screws behind the fan over here, and I'll be able to take the fan out. Now coming over to the outside of the fan, I've got these 4 screws holding the fan in. The one I'm going to remove them is the bottom ones first, and then I'll remove the one up here, which is sort of furthest away from me on the inside, and then this one in the corner, and then I'm just going to gently remove the fan from the inside. That way the fan isn't sort of bending on those ones, damaging the case. It's being supported by those ones and less likely to damage anything. So let's remove the fan. And now in this last one, I'll be supporting the fan from the inside so it doesn't drop and damage anything, while I'm moving this one here. And success, my fan is removed. Great, so now I've got my 2 fans. This is the one that came out, and I took note of the orientation of the label when I took it out, so I know how it was set up previously. So this was up in this direction. Now the new fan, you can see orientated with the label in the also upright position, has the wire sticking out this side. So what I typically do whenever I'm changing a part on really anything is match things up like for like, so making sure that things are orientated in the correct direction. It just saves a whole lot of headaches later. So the fans are kind of orientated this way, the fan blades are kind of orientated this way, so that's equivalent. And then all I'm going to do is rotate this around so it's in that direction, so this wire is pointing out the same position that this one was. Even though it doesn't make the label straight, I'm more worried about making things nice and easy. So we're doing it that way. This one has a slightly higher amperage rating, so this is 0.11 amps. This is 0.1. Hopefully that won't make a difference and it'll work fine. In the case of this one, the little socket looks like this, and the one on the new fan looks very much identical. So I think everything's going to work in that regard. If the things were different, I'll have a problem. I'll have to get a different fan. But as everything looks the same, I don't know head about computers, but if that looks like that, they're the same size, roughly the same current, and the same plug, I think things are going to work. And that gives me a pretty good chance for things to work out in my favour. While the fasteners do look very similar, I will be using the new fasteners because I don't know if there's a difference, and I don't know if they're like a single use thing, so I'll be using the new ones. And probably worth mentioning now, the reason I'm changing the fan is because this is very noisy, and I was worried about it not working. And my system only has like 2 fans in it, so if I lose one of them, that's not going to work very well. So I really want to have 2 functional ones. This one still works, so I won't necessarily throw it out, but it won't be my first preference. The first one is the one that doesn't make noise and the one that works. So let's get to installing the new one. Now, as with most things, assembly is the reverse of disassembly, so I'll be using the opposite process. So I'll be holding the fan in, installing this screw first, then this one, and then doing a bit of cable management inside, wrapping the cable around so that it's not stretched out or scrunched up, and then plugging it into the computer. So without further ado, now remembering that I'm orientating the fan in sort of this plane, so that even though this is not necessarily upright, the cable's exiting in the same point, because someone had that exiting at that point previously for a reason, possibly just because the deco was lined up, but I want to keep that the same just to minimise my potential headaches. So let's do it. Great, so I've lined that hole up there to start off with. So the hole in the fan is lined up with the hole in the case, and I'll get this little screw started by hand. Get a few turns on it as the screw cuts into the plastic. Great, now it's going to hold the fan roughly in position. And it's worth mentioning, I'm not going to lift the wall up to finishing tightness until I've got all of them in place, in case I need to make any small alignments as I go. So next thing, I'll get this one up here in. Great, now it's threaded confidently. Next one. Great. Cool. I'll get them all screwed up. Remembering these are screws into plastic, so they don't be very tight, just done up is perfect. Now I'll go inside the computer and check out the cables. You can see the cable's just dangling around here. Got a whole lot of extra length, so I'm going to have to use it up somehow. So the way they had done it previously was they had wrapped it around the PC fan, and they had just run it sort of across to the motherboard. So I'll do something similar, because I think that was pretty neat how they had it before. So what I'm going to do is run it up and around the fan. Don't know how well you can see that. And then take it up and I'll just plug it into the motherboard. With any luck, I'll get the orientation correct. Fantastic. Push that wire up out of the way a little bit. And success. We're plugged into the correct position. Looking good. So all I'm going to do now is get the case shut up, turn the computer on, and hopefully the fan spins. We'll see you in a moment. Great, Great, now moment of truth. We'll turn the computer on and see if the fan spins. Let's give it a whirl. Fantastic, I don't know if you can see that, but that fan is spinning. It's pushing air. Success. We'll fix the computer, fix the fan, it's nice and quiet. Great.